Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of where Issei left and become the Crimson Dragon god of Shinigami. Now let's get into part 2. Issei's shop, underground training area 3 months later. Third path. It's been about 3 months since Issei had met Albion, and since then his training has gotten even more intense, since now he had to learn the abilities of 2 different dragons. Luckily for Issei, learning how to divide was somewhat similar to boosting, which was a relief, though using the technique known as half-dimension, which was tricky for Albion to teach Issei since they were trying to keep the aspect of sacred gears a secret from everyone until the time was right. But luckily, Issei was able to understand the concept of it at least, and that most likely will have to try it out when he goes out into battle. Then Ddraig told Albion about why Issei didn't remember who Volume 1 was. The fragment of the White Dragon was shocked to think that the people that he would call family would just berate it and belittle him for something that was out of his control and had no knowledge of. And when Ddraig told Albion about his trauma that the fallen angel Rainer gave him, it gave the White Dragon even more respect for the now red-headed boy. But Albion asked why Issei wasn't a pervert. Ddraig explained that it was an effect of him sealing away his memories, and this was essentially the Issei that never had the trauma that Rainer gave, and him having healthy, loving family. In other words, Ddraig told him that this was the real Issei underneath all the trauma and pervertedness that he had in him. Since then, Albion agreed to help Ddraig and Yamato to help keep the seals on his memories from breaking until the time was right for Issei to accept his memories. All while Issei had questions of his own when he confronted Ddraig who Albion was. Ddraig explained truthfully about his past with Albion and how both of them were sealed inside sacred gears and how they used their hosts to continue their battle for all of eternity, and that one day he would have to face the person who wielded Albion's sacred gear. This confused Issei, since how would that be possible if Albion was already inside of him? In which Ddraig explained that the Albion that they see is only a soul fragment of the original Albion that was absorbed into the boost from a piece of Albion's sacred gear, and that most likely Issei fought the host of Albion before losing his memories and was able to successfully absorb Albion's sacred gear into him. Issei accepted the explanation, but Issei believed that Ddraig was keeping something from him, and that it was a big secret. But every fiber in Issei's being was telling him to trust Ddraig, and the fact he couldn't deny it, Issei trusted Ddraig with his life, and so far Ddraig has not once led him astray, and he wasn't going to start doubting him now. So he decided to let it go, and trusted that Ddraig will tell him the secret that he was keeping from him in time. Currently, we see Issei in the underground training area, drawing a magic circle on the ground to act as an anchor, since it was time for a big leap in Issei's training, but he needed to go somewhere extremely secluded since Yamato told him that he wouldn't want to be around people when it happened. This of course got the attention of Kisuke, Tessai and Yorichi. Issei? Curious. Hey Issei, what are you doing? Issei? Surprised. Oh hey Uncle Kisuke. I'm just drawing myself an anchor to this world. Issei. Curious, why would you need to draw yourself an anchor? Issei. Smiles, because I'll be going to another dimension for a few days. Everyone. Shocked. What? Irichi. Surprised, why are you going to another dimension? Issei. Smiles, because Yamato thinks it's about time I learned my Bankai. Everyone. Shocked. This shocked everyone since they knew how powerful Issei was with the power with just Shirkai, and his overall training progressing at an alarming rate. No doubt he wasn't that far from being able to surpass them in both skill and power. So to think what his Bankai would be like was scary nonetheless. Isuke. Confused, but Issei, if it's time for you to learn your Bankai, you could have done it here. I asked Yamada the same question, but he said that it would be best that I'm not around a civilized area or even around people since supposedly my Bankai is pretty destructive by nature. This again shocked everyone since Issei Zanpakuto to believe that his Bankai was so destructive that they needed to be in another dimension in order to perform. It would be no wonder that Issei is taking these precautions. Issei. Curious, but Issei, how will you get to this other dimension? Issei. Smiles. Simple, by opening a dragon gate. Kisuke. Curious, what's a dragon gate? Issei. Smiles. A dragon gate is a special form of transportation that only we dragons can use. With it we can essentially travel anywhere we want, even to another universe if we so wanted to. Kisuke. Mind? Amazed. A way to travel to another universe. That's unbelievable. To think this boy essentially had the ability to travel to any world or universe that he wanted to. Curious, I wonder what the other abilities and secrets that dragons have hiding under their scales. Pasuk. Curious, oh Issei, how do you know how to do all this? Irachi. Curious, I'm also curious since I would think without your memories that you would have no idea to perform a ritual such as this. Issei. Smiles, oh, that's because Ddraig taught me how to use it. Pasuk. Confused. Who's Ddraig? Issei. Smiles. The dragon that lives inside my soul along with Yamato. This shocked everyone in that the other being that was living inside Issei's soul was actually another dragon, though it now made sense on how Issei was able to perform this ritual without difficulty. Pasuk. Curious Issei, is it possible for you to summon Ddraig like you did with Yamato? Issei. Nods. No, I can't since he is trapped within my soul. Si. Curious, then how do you communicate with him? Issei. Smiles through a mental link. He was actually the one who told me to go with Mom after I woke up, as well as tell you guys that I was a dragon in the first place. Pasuk. Curious, is there any way we can communicate with him? Issei. Nods. There is, but he doesn't want to talk to you guys. Irachi. Confused, why not? Issei. Serious Ddraig finds it tedious and annoying to try to talk to other people besides me and Yamato, but he also believes that it is not time yet for you guys to talk to him yet. Disick. Curious, do you know when it's time then? Issei. Nods. Nope, not even I know when it's the right time. Smiles. But I trust Ddraig with every fiber of my being since I know he wouldn't make me do anything without a good reason. Everyone was a bit taken back on how much trust Issei had in this Ddraig being, but given from what Issei just told him, it would make sense this Ddraig being was the only person that Issei had ever known since waking up without his memories, so it's obvious that Issei would have blind faith in him. Once Issei was done with the magic circle, he then started gathering his draconic energy, in which an ominous portal opened in front of him, and out came a giant stone gate with grim reapers on both sides, and on the door were pictures of dragons doing battle. Everyone present was shocked by what Issei just summoned. Kisuk wondered if could maybe study it, since a possible way to travel between universes could be useful in the future, all while everyone else were amazed by the textural design. Issei. Smiles. There we go, Irachi. Concern Issei. How long will you be gone? Issei. Smiles. Don't worry, Nissen, I'll be back within a week tops. You have nothing to worry about. But in actuality Issei will be gone for 7 months, since Al told them of a special dimension that he used to visit in order to train for his fights with Ddraig, and that from he could gather from his memories. None of his other hosts have ever gone there since you needed a strong mind in order to survive in the environment. Concerned, but what should you tell your father? Blinks in confusion, casually realizes, oh yeah, I totally forgot to tell Dad I would be doing this today, didn't I? At that response, everyone comedically fell face first on the ground, since even though Issei was pretty smart, and was essentially a prodigy for a 10-year-old, he still had childlike tendencies. Greg, Albion, and Yamato sweat dropped at their host's stupidity sometimes, since they told Issei earlier to tell his father that he would be gone for a week in order to learn how to use his Bankai. But of course Issei, being excited on finally being used his Bankai, completely forgot to tell him before leaving. Isaac smiles weakly. Well, in that case Issei, what should we tell your father? Issei, thinking him, smiles, I guess tell him the truth, of course. I'm sure he can make up some excuse for Ichigo, Yuzu, and Karen to believe. Everyone mind? Sweat drops right. Issei smiles. Well, I'm off. See you guys in about a week. Irichi, concerned beckerful Issei. Issei grins happily. I will, Nissan. Yamato. Smirks. You ready, Issei? Issei mind? Smirks. I'm ready, Yamato. But that Issei walked through the Dragon Gate to begin the biggest part of his training in not only being the strongest Soul Reaper in existence, but also the strongest Red Dragon Emperor. Scene change. Alternate dimension. Issei had just emerged from the Dragon Gate, only to see himself in a beautiful enchanted forest filled with wildlife and a beautiful night sky. Issei. In awe, wow. Albion, I didn't know the dimension that you trained in would be so beautiful. Albion smirks, I'm glad that you liked it since I made sure that no one would be able to figure out about this place. The only being that I can think of who could possibly find this place would be Great Red. Issei. Curious, who's Great Red? Greg. Serious, he's known as the true Red Dragon God Emperor as well as the Dragon of Dreams and Illusions. He is the strongest dragon in existence, and is able to make everything he dreams become reality. Issei. Amazed. Wow. That's so cool. Excited. Do you think I can be as powerful as him one day? Greg roars in delight. I have no doubt that you will partner with your powers as a Soul Reaper as well as the powers of the boosted gear and divine dividing. I have no doubt in my mind that you will become the strongest dragon that will ever exist. Issei. Excited or right? So what first? Yamato. Serious, well, as we have 7 months in this dimension, it's best to organize your training regimen so that you will make actual progress. As such, on top of you learning how to use and control your Bankai, we'll be working on your Dark Slayer training in hopes it will help you become one step closer into mastering it, as well helping you learn your holification as well as the abilities while having it. Greg. Serious, and since we're alone now, we can properly train you on how to use the boosted gear as well as how to use draconic abilities. Albion. Serious, we can use the wildlife here as well as a way to help you test to see if your use of divine dividing is progressing smoothly. Upon hearing all this, Issei couldn't help but beam with absolute excitement in what he was going to learn in these next few months. Issei. Excited, when do we start? It was then that Yamato came out of Issei in his spirit form and tossed Issei a copy of his sword. Yamato smirks right now. Issei grins in excitement. Just you watch, Yamato, cause I'll be so strong, you won't be able to comprehend my power. Yamato smirks, well, see about that. Now then. Getting into a stance, show me your motivation. Issei roars, ah. It was then both Issei and Yamato clashed blades, which will be the beginning of the hellish training that Issei will have to endure. Scene change. Issei shop, underground training area 1 week later. It's been a whole week since Issei left for the other dimension to go to train on how to use his Bankai, and since then things have been quiet for the most part. When Kisuke told Issei that Issei went to another dimension in order to finally how to use his Bankai, he became pale with concern since the past year. He had come to see Issei as his genuine son, and of course worried for his safety. He would comedically remark that his son was starting to become a delinquent, and was going to go down a path of no return. Of course, he had to lie to Ichigo, Yuzu, and Karen that Issei's dojo took him to a week-long training trip, which saddened the siblings since to them Issei was the older brother that thought they could never have, especially Ichigo, who looked up to Issei as an inspiration. Everyone at Kisuke's shop has essentially been quiet since they started to realize that things were a lot more interesting when Issei was around and hoped that he would come back soon. But the one who was probably the most affected by this was Yoruichi, since she started to miss having fun with a young red-headed boy and their sparring sessions. Even her going out in the town in her cat form was not as amusing without Issei around following her, which of course got her to be constantly teased by Kisuke that she was starting to develop a crush for Issei, which resulted in Kisuke being relentlessly attacked by Yoruichi. Currently we see Yoruichi within the underground training area just staring blankly at the area where Issei was before going into the Dragon Gate, since he said he would return around today, and was somewhat impatiently waiting for her little brother's return. Yoruichi sighs in annoyance. Where the hell are you, Ice? Issei grins. Someone is impatient for my son's return. Yoruichi shocked. What the hell, Issei? What the hell are you doing here? Issei chuckles. My goodness, Yoruichi, you must be getting lax to let someone like me startle you like that. Yoruichi? Flustered. Shut up. It's boring without someone to mess around with is all. What are you even doing here, Issei? Issei chuckles. Is it wrong for a father to await his son's return from training? Yoruichi? Serious sigh. I suppose so. Issei smirks. You know, Yoruichi, you've been different ever since Issei came into the picture. Am I to assume that you actually fancy my son now? If you want, I'm more than happy to give you my blessing. But at least wait until he's a bit older before you two do something scandalous or try something in the bedroom, will you? This of course caused Yorichi's face to turn as red as Issei's hair. But of course before she could have the chance to retort Essen's claim, the ground started to shake, which caught the attention of both Kasuke and Tessai upstairs. It was then the Dragon Gate appeared where Issei was a week ago, which caused Yorichi to have a smile on her face since it meant that her little brother had finally returned, in which things were about to become amusing again. It was then Kasuke and Tessai came down sensing that the Dragon Gate had appeared, signaling that their nephew's student had finally achieved Bankai. Irichi smiles, about time he came back. Kasuke smiles, so Issei is finally back from obtaining his Bankai. Si. Curious, I wonder what kind power does his Bankai have? Isen. Serious, well, given that just the Shurikai is honestly terrifying on its own, we could imagine how much destructive power its fully released state has in store for us. It was then the doors of the Dragon Gate opened and his Issei came out, but everyone noticed something different about him, not only in his power, but also in his appearance as well. Not only did he came out in his humanoid dragon form, but instead of one pair of wings he two pairs, which was bizarre for everyone. Also his hair was a bit longer as well. His clothes were different, which showed off his more muscular physique, in which he developed a solid six-pack abs, which is no way, shape, or form is normal for a child, but given Issei was a dragon, they had to essentially throw normalcy out the window. But the thing that shocked everyone was that Issei was now a bit taller, to the point he could possibly pass as a teenager who was in junior high. Everyone was shocked by the amazing transformation that Issei just went through and were curious on what the hell happened to him within that week. Isen? Curious Isen? Is that you, Isen? Startled while looking towards the source of the sound, smiles. Oh, hey Dad, did you miss me? Isen? Smiles with joy. My son has finally returned. It was then Isen jumped towards Isen, giving him a firm and strong fatherly hug, in which Isen accepted since he did miss his father, as well as his siblings since he left. It was then Isen finally released Isen from his tight grip and put both of his hands on his shoulders. He couldn't believe how much his son has changed in such a short amount of time. Isen smiles. Look at you, Issei. What the hell happened to you? You're essentially almost a man now. Isen chuckles nervously. Well, believe it or not, I hit a pretty big growth sprout while away, hence the reason why I had to change my clothes. Isen laughs. Well, in that case we'll have to get you some new clothes since all your old ones won't probably fit you anymore. Smiles. Everyone at home miss you a lot, you know. Especially Ichigo. Issei smiles. I could only imagine. No doubt I'll have a lot of explaining to do for them when we get back home. It was then Issei's instincts kicked in and that Yorichi used Shunpa to get the drop on Issei. But just as she going to latch on to Issei, he used his Shunpa to disappear, which shocked Issei a bit since she didn't expect for Issei to be faster with Shunpa while also learning how to use his Bankai. Yorichi? Shocked. It was then Yorichi felt a hand on her head, and when she looked up, she saw that it was Issei with a shit-eating grin on her face. This made Irichi have a tick mark on her face since Issei thought that he was faster than her. It was then Irichi teach her little brother a lesson that he wasn't going to forget, and tried to use Shunpa to get the drop on him, only for Issei to use his Shunpa to stand on one of the many rock figures in the area, all while keeping the same shit-eating grin. Issei grins. You gotta do better than Isen. I'm not as slow as I used to be. Irichi, smiling while having a tick mark on her head. Oh, you think just because you were able to give me the slip, well, I guess as your big sister, I better discipline you into thinking you're already better than me. Issei grins. Well, you better catch me then, Nisan. Baisuke smiles confident. Is he? Irichi? Smirks. Not for long, he's not. Get over here, Issei. It was then Issei and Yorichi started their intense game of tag in which they would constantly use their Shunpo in order to catch each other. To everyone's surprise, as well as Yorichi was on how well Issei was doing on being able to keep up with Yorichi, everyone wondered what the hell type of training did in the last week, since it was obvious it wasn't just learning on how to use the Bankai. Irichi mind? Serious, there's no way he became this fast in just 1 week. What type of training did Irichi go through? Irichi grins. Am I going too fast for you, Nissan? Maybe I should dial back my flash steps a bit so you could keep up. Erichi grins with a tick mark on her face. Don't get too cocky, you little brat. I'll show you why I'm called the Flash Goddess. It was then Eureka decided to hold back on her flash steps, in which she started to pick up her speed to the next level. This caused Issei to have a devious smirk on his face, in which right as Eureka was about to grab hold Issei, the devious redhead summoned his draconic energy, and made a second copy of himself which shocked everyone in the area. Everyone? Shock, there's two of them now. Issei's smirks, what do you think? This is a technique that Ddraig taught me which is called Dragon Clone. Everyone was shocked by what Issei just said, in which he can essentially make exact copies of himself, which alone has many applications for combat as well as information gathering. Despite there being two essays, this excited Yorichi for some reason, since the aspect of someone who was actually giving her a challenge in terms of using Flash Step was definitely a nice changed pace for once. In which Kasuke and Tessa noticed and couldn't help but chuckle at the sight. This went on for about 5 minutes until Yorichi was finally able to catch one of the essays only to disappear, revealing that it was a clone. This annoyed Yorichi a bit but pushed past it and went after the other one. Kasuke smiles. My, I haven't Eureka have this much fun in centuries. Nods. I have to agree, it's been quite some time since Miss Eureka has been this driven. Munch, curious, she's still going after my clone. Issei Kasuke Tessai shocked him. As soon as Issei, Kasuke, and Tessai turned around, they saw Issei casually looking at himself being chased around by Yorichi while eating a bag of chips that he got from upstairs. This shocked the three men since they were wondering when the hell Issei left the area to grab some chips. Issei, curious, looks at the three shocked men confused. What? Issei, shocked. Wait. Are you another cloner, actually the real Issei? Si. Shocked. If you're the real one, then when did you leave to go get chips from the store? Si. Blinks in confusion. Casually smiles. Oh, I summoned that clone as soon as Nisent tried to get the drop on me. Once I knew she was fixated on my clone, I quickly went upstairs to grab something to snack on. Smiles while waving the bag of chips. You have no idea on some of the things you would miss being gone for 7 months, you know? Basukis and Tessai. Shocked. 7 months. Vaisuk. Shocked, but it's only been a week. Vaisei. Serious for you guys maybe. But for me, I was gone for 7 whole months. During those 7 months, I not only obtained Bankai as well as learned how to control it, but I also trained on my draconic abilities on top of my hollow powers. This shocked the three men, immensely amazed and shocked for a while. All three of them thought he was just learning on how to just obtain Bankai, but he was also learning how to control his natural abilities as a dragon as well as learn on how to control his holification. But that was not the only thing Issei mastered while away. On top obtaining and mastering his Bankai, on top of mastering his holification powers, Issei was able to make leaps and bounds in his boosted gear training as well as Dark Slayer wielding. During those 7 months, Issei was able to boost himself to at least X100 before giving out, as well as being able to unlock Ddraig's last skill known as Penetrate, which allowed him to break through almost all forms of barriers. He also made great progress on learning how divine dividing, in which, thanks sparring with the dangerous creatures there, Issei was able strongly hold about X78 divides before giving out, as well as being able to use half dimension around the same amount. Issei was also trained in using his balance breaker as his illegal move Triana, in which he could switch and stay in the forms for about 3 hours straight before giving up and letting it reset. During his dragon training, Ddraig and Albion began to start training his Sei on how to use their ultimate attacks, which were Blazing, Scorching, Inferno, and Reduce, which to their surprise, Sei was able to grasp the concept of their techniques fairly quickly, but knew it would still be a few years until he could fully master it. When Issei's training was done, he was on the strength of a heavenly dragon, though he was still not strong enough to be on par with Ddraig yet. Issei was at least able to withstand a bit more of the power that Ddraig had to seal the way, in which Issei right now only unlocked at least 55% of the power that he had locked away and had another 45% to go, in which Ddraig and Albion theorized he would be almost on par with Shiva at the very least when he unlocks all of it. The legendary dragon couldn't help but smile with pride that his host would become this powerful without his perverted nature and trauma looming over him. But the three men could ask more details about his training. Erichi was finally able to catch the last to say. Erichi? Pants got you? Pants while sweating. Never underestimate the flash goddess, Shimin. You got it, Issei clone. Smirksky. Poof. Issei shocked what that was a clone too. Issei smiles and waves Jaime-san. Issei shocked, Issei smiles and waves. I hope my clones were able to at least give you a bit of a challenge. When Erichi turned around she saw Issei standing there nonchalantly next to Issei, Kisuke and Tezai while eating a bag of chips while smiling. This annoyed Yorichi a lot since this entire time she was chasing after copies of Issei while the other one casually grabbed a snack without her noticing. That was when Yorichi immediately sped up to Issei about to deliver a punch to him for humiliating her only for Issei to casually dodge strikes. This, of course, made Yorichi even more annoyed and started attacking faster. Irachi. Annoyed, stay still damn it, and accept your punishment. Irachi. Confused, why am I being punished? Irachi. Annoyed for humiliating me with that clone stunt. Issei couldn't help but inwardly chuckle at his childhood friend and the ex-captain of the punishment force is becoming aggravated because of a child. Issei seeing this was confused since he thought he was playing a practical joke on Yorichi like how she does with him, but it seemed it backfired somehow. He tried to figure out a way to apologize to her since he could tell from the look in her eyes that she was probably listening to words. As he tried figuring out a way to apologize to Yorichi while still trying to dodge her attacks, it was then he remembered what his mother Masaki told him if a situation were to ever arise. Issei mind? Curious that could work nervous. Well Mom, let's see if your advice actually works. Once Issei found an opening in Yorichi's attack using his enhanced speed and reflexes, he did something that not only shocked everyone in the room, including the occupants inside his soul, but will no doubt change the relationship between Issei and Yorichi forever. Smooch. Issei went up to Yorichi and kissed her on the forehead, causing her to stop attacking as well as make her face become completely red. All the men in the room had their jaws dropped to the floor on what Issei just did. All the while, Dragon Albion couldn't help but snicker and whistle on how straightforward there was being with the woman who he saw as a big sister. Even Yamato couldn't but chuckle a bit from what his partner was doing. When it was done, Yorichi was a stuttering mess from what just happened. Iriuchi. Read while stuttering. Wah. What just happened? Issei. Smiles. Holy crap, it actually worked. Mom's advice actually worked. Listen. Confused. What are you talking about, Issei? What did your mom tell you? Issei smiles. Well, Mom told me if by any chance a girl got mad at me for no reason and a simple apology won't, then give her a kiss on the cheek or forehead, then she'll totally stop being mad at you and will automatically forgive you. Both Kisuke and Tessa couldn't help but sweat drop at what Issei told him since in most cases, that's more of a reason for any woman to hate him more, as well as get him into serious trouble. All the while, Issei couldn't help but comedically shed tears of absolute joy in the fact that his lovely wife Masaki was still teaching their son despite gone. Issei cries comedically, oh lovely Masaki, even though you're gone, you still teach our precious boy important life lessons. Smile with pride, now look at him. He's already one step closer into becoming a man. Issei mind? Smiles while sweat dropping. Oh boy, he's at it again already, and I haven't even been back for 10 minutes. Issei smiles while sweat dropping and dragging Issei. Come on Dad, it's getting late and I'm pretty sure Ichigo, Yuzu and Karen must be waiting in anticipation for us to come home. Smiles and waves. See you tomorrow Uncle Kisuke Tezai and you too Yorichi-ni-san. But that Issei left Kisuke's shop while dragging his overjoyed father for being proud of his son for being one step closer into becoming a true man. All while leaving a still red and stuttering Yorichi on what just happened to her. Time skip, for months later. It's been 4 months since Issei had returned from his training in the alternate dimension, and since then his training has gone up to the point he was allowed to start learning how to use the more advanced techniques of his Soul Reaper powers and abilities. Banus arrived home with Issei, Ichigo, Yuzu, and Karen were ecstatic that their older brother had returned home from his training trip, and that everything was boring without him around, and that they hoped that he wouldn't go away for such a long time again. In which smiled warmly and patted each of their heads and said that he will try to make sure that he doesn't leave abruptly like that again. When Kisakunda-san asked if they could see Issei's Bankai, Issei replied nervously and said that he couldn't, since if he were to use his Bankai even while holding it back would meant that he could accidentally destroy most of Karakura town if he unleashed it. This caused Kisa's condition to become completely shocked. This meant if Issei's Bankai was that powerful and will no doubt grow in power as he gets older, could mean that Issei's Bankai could no doubt all of Japan or even the world itself. Things between Issei and Yurichi were a bit strange for a while, for which every time they would meet, Yurichi would easily get flustered around Issei, which the boy greatly on why she was acting that way. Yurichi then scolded Issei in that kissing her like that was not right, and that he should only do that with the girl that he liked, in which Issei answered innocently that he liked Eureka, which of course caused the woman to blush madly at what Issei just told her. Currently we see Issei in the underground training area swinging Yamato to get ready for sword training with the sword spirit until all of a sudden when during one of his swings, a portal appears out of nowhere. Issei, shocked, what the hell just happened? Yamato smirks. Interesting. It seems you accidentally discovered away the properties of my blade to create a portal of some kind. Ddraig, curious. Wait. You didn't know you had this ability? Yamato, serious. I only knew that I had the ability to disorient space as well as being able to cut through anything. Remember, I'm not like others in Pakuto since Issei didn't originally have Soul Reaper powers to begin with. Albion, curious. So what do you think caused this to happen? Yamato, serious, I'm not sure. It could have easily been a result of him achieving his Bankai, but unlike his Bankai version, this is more for travel purposes than combat. Issei, mind? Curious, where do you think it leads to? Yamato, confused, not sure, the only way to know for sure is as if we go into it. Issei, mind? Nervous, are you sure, guys? I mean, what if we end up at a place that we don't know or a hazardous dimension where it could kill me? Ddraig, serious, if that happens then we can try using it again, or open a magic, or a dragon gate to escape. Issei, mind? Nervous, okay. Breaths, okay, you got this, Issei. You're the Red Dragon Emperor and the next Red Dragon God Emperor. There's no way you can't let something rattle you, or else you can't call yourself a true dragon. Determined, okay, let's do this. Feeling a bit more confident in what Issei just told himself, he walked through that he unknowingly created to see lies beyond it. Scene change. Soul Society, Soul King's Palace. High above the Serrate in a separate dimension lies the palace of the Soul King, who is considered the linchpin or god of the world, whose main purpose is to properly and safely guide the flow of souls between the human world, the Serrate, and Hueco Mundo. Surrounding the palace are floating cities that belong to each of the members of the Royal Guard, whose sole purpose is to protect the Soul King at all costs, as well as defeat any menace that appear. Within the inner chambers of the palace that resides the Soul King, a portal appeared out of nowhere, and out came a young boy with red spiky hair and red crimson eyes. This, of course, was no other than Issei Kurosaki, who just came out of the portal that he accidentally made under Kisuke's shop. When he looked in the room, he was in complete awe of where he was. He almost believed that he was in heaven, in which Ddraig and Albion told him that he wasn't given that the dragons had actually been to heaven in their prime. Ddraig told Issei that they might be in Takamijihara, which the home of the Shinto gods given the Japanese architecture and vibe. But when both Ddraig and Albion sensed none of the Shinto faction members or even the Shinto trio, they deduced that it wasn't it. Issei, in awe, wow. This place is amazing. Closes his eyes and feels the spiritual energy in the air. The spiritual energy of this place is so pure and dense. Yamato, serious, I must agree, the Rietsu is extremely pure. We must be in the Soul Society that Kisuke and Isuhi have spoken about a few times. Ddraig? Curious, yeah, but where in the Soul Society to be exact? As Issei continued walking the halls of this enormous palace, he stumbled upon a large, elegant room, and in it was a humanoid with slicked back dark hair, oval eyes, and very thin eyebrows. His eyes are very unusual, each having 4 black rises. He does not have any arms or legs. The man was sealed within an unusual barrier that is suspended by 4 wires. Issei, upon seeing him, could only react in one way. Issei. Beyond shocked. Holy shit. It's an alien. Shocked. Who goes there? Unfortunately for Issei has explosive but also expected reaction on seeing the person who was essentially mutilated and put up on display caused someone nearby to hear it. That's when a man covered in white robes and a mask came out from around the corner, only to be surprised by that boy with red spiky hair and crimson eyes. When Issei saw the white-robed man, he smiled weakly and tried his best to let the man know that he came in peace. Issei smiles nervously while making a peace sign. Hello? I come in peace. Chuckles nervously. Everyone? White-robed man. Serious, intruder. Issei? Panics. Wait. I'm not here to cause any trouble. White-robed man. Serious, an intruder has broken into the Soul King's chambers. Alert the royal guard immediately. As the white-robed man ran off, alerting everyone about Issei's presence, and the sound of alarms went off, the boy in question couldn't help panicking about what he should do. Issei. Panics. Oh crap. What should I do? Yamato. Annoyed. Well, don't just stand there, you idiot. Get us out of here. Issei. Realizes right. It was then Issei summoned Yamato, and tried opening a portal back to Kisuke's shop, only for nothing to happen. Issei tried desperately slicing the air to hopefully have a portal to appear, only for nothing to appear again. Issei. Panics. Guys, nothing is happening. What should I do? Yamato. Serious, you need to focus. Issei. Greg. Serious, there's no time. I'm already sensing multiple signatures speeding towards your location, partner. You open up a dragon gate ASAP. Albion. Serious, you need to hurry. They'll be here any minute. Issei. Nods right. It was then Issei unsummoned Yamato, and quickly started summoning the dragon gate. But just before Issei could actually open the dragon gate, a small explosion was heard right near Issei, which was enough to throw him off his concentration. Boom. Issei. Frustrated? Damn it. Serious, who are you? How dare you invade the Soul King's personal quarters? Issei. Confused. When Issei turned around after the dust cleared, Issei saw a group of bizarre people that seemed to be Soul Reaper attire, with a white long-sleeved haori with a symbol of what seemed to be 4 stars huddling together. Issei. Confused. Who the hell are you people? This confused the group of people immensely, since when they received word that intruder somehow got past their defense and entered the chamber of the Soul King was actually a child. It was then one of them stepped forward to confront Issei. The person was a large and broad individual with a bald head, red eyes, bushy eyebrows, and a long black beard. He wears the standard shihikish beneath a white long-sleeved haori decorated with the Royal Guard's emblem. The top of his uniform is open enough to expose his hairy chest. He also wears a large set of red prayer beads around his neck and a pair of single-toothed Tengu Jetta. Smiles. My name is Ikab Hyosu and I'm the leader of the Royal Guard, so I ask you again, who are you and how dare you enter the Soul King's personal chambers? From that it finally dawned on Issei and where he was right now. Not only was he in the Soul Society but actually in the Soul King's palace, which is impossible to get to unless you are summoned here or are invited by the Royal Guard. Issei is right of right now, and from what he heard from Kisuke and Tensai as well as Ariuchi, is that they are considered some of the most powerful Soul Reapers that have existed, and thus it's their job to protect the Soul King, whose purpose is to help maintain the balance of life and death. When Issei realized the situation is in, there was only one thing that could come to his mind, and he hoped that the spirit of his mother was not watching or hearing this right now. Issei mind, pales fuck my life. Soul King Palace, Soul King's Chambers. Issei mind, pales fuck my life. Those were the words that were currently repeating inside Issei's mind, since he was currently not only in the Serite, but inside the Soul King's palace, but also inside his chambers. Right now he was face to face with the captain of the Royal Guard, who is said to be one of the strongest Soul Reapers in the Serite, and he was being accused of being an intruder since he appeared here, thanks to Yamato. Issei was panicking on what he needed to do until Ddraig spoke up in order to help calm him down. Ddraig, serious partner, calm down. Issei, mind, panics. How can I fucking calm down? I am standing in front of one of the strongest soul reapers in the entire Serate. Yamato. Serious, don't let his status and him staring you down get to you. He may be powerful, but so are you. From what I can tell, you are still a bit stronger than him even without the sacred or using your Bankai. Albion. Serious. He's right, partner, and do not forget that you are a dragon. As such, your base stats alone on top of your powers and skills as a Shinigami should help you have the advantage. Issei, mind? Serious. Yeah. But that's just him. What about the others? I hardly doubt I can take on all of them without using my Bankai or sacred gear. Yamato. Serious, if it comes to that. Then you'll have to use holification, since we can't take the chance of anyone discovering the power of sacred gears just yet. As Issei was discussing his next course of action with residents within his mind, Ichib was having a mental discussion of his own. Ichib, mind? Curious, why can't I see his name? Ichib has the power to manipulate and identify the true name of everything in existence, such as coming up with the name of Zanpakuto as well as their release forms such as Shirkai and Bankei. Upon this, Ichib knows the name of every Zanpakuto since they were born, hence giving him the title of the monk who calls the real name. But for some reason, whenever tried to look into the true name of either Issei or his Zanpakuto, all he would get is static, which has never happened before, which made the leader of the royal guard more curious of who this boy was and why he was here. Ichib. Serious, boy. Issei. Startled Ichib. Serious, you haven't answered my question. Who are you and why are you here in the Soul's King chambers? Ichib. Nervous, well, you see. Ichib. Serious, know that your answer will determine if you live or not. That sentence caused Issei to gulp nervously a bit, since there was a chance for him to be killed, but quickly steeled himself, since not only was there chance for him to leave her unscathed, but also he remembered what his partners told him, and that if needed to, he could fight his way out and win, and that if anyone were to say Ichib's name without his permission, then they would permanently lose their voice. Ichib was now grumbling in annoyance, since now he wouldn't be able to get any answers from the boy. But Issei simply just tilted his head innocently in confusion as to why Ichib reacted that way. Issei, mind? Confused, why did he react that way? All I did was try to say his name. Greg. Confused. I'm just as confused as you are, partner. Albion. Curious, maybe because you didn't address his rank first. Yamato. Curious, it could be possible, but I hardly doubt it will help us get out of our current predicament. Issei. Nervous, Captain Ichib-san. Sir? Everyone? Shocked, each member of the royal guard was shocked when the child was somehow able to speak again, but the one who was most surprised was definitely Ichib, since no doubt he didn't give the boy permission to speak his name, but he was still able to speak with no problem whatsoever. Ichib. Shocked. How are you able to speak? Issei tilts his head in confusion. What are you talking about? I'm able to speak using my mouth. Points to his mouth. See. I'm talking right now, aren't I? Ichib. Serious. That is not the point, boy. My name is cursed, and those who speak my name without my permission will lose their voice forever. At that, both Issei as well as the residents inside his soul couldn't help but have a deadpan expression on their face, since all four of them thought that was probably the stupidest curse to have, given the authoritative and upbeat vibe they were getting from Ichib. Issei. Deadpan, that is literally the stupidest thing that I ever heard. Ichib. Shocked, what? Issei. A bit annoyed. I mean, if I speak your name without your permission, then I lose my voice forever. Like what in the actual hell, man? I literally was just trying to answer your previous question, but now you say I just could have lost my voice and not given the chance to explain myself. How the hell is anyone supposed to address you or answer your questions if they can't say your name? Everyone was a bit speechless from what Issei just said, since they couldn't deny the logic behind their captain's curse, since it would make it difficult to address him, or even speak at times, since without proper permission beforehand, they could lose their voice before even explaining what their purpose was or even answer a question. Ika grins with a tick mark. Well, I did just say I was the leader of the royal guards, did I not? So you could address me as captain. Issei waves his hands while still deadpanning. Yeah, but I'm not being one for formalities since it's too much trouble and whatnot, plus I don't even know you. This made Icheb grumble in annoyance since he honestly couldn't believe that he was essentially letting a child get on his nerves, especially given how old he is. Icheb sighs in annoyance. Well, in any case, do you care why you are here? I say, sighs in annoyance like I was trying to say, it's that I don't know how I got here. 1 minute I was just doing some practice swings when all of a sudden I somehow was able to make a portal to here. When the other guy came and panicked, I tried to open another to get out of here. But just when I was about to do so, you guys barged in and ruined everything. So as you can see, I literally by accident, and I just want to go back to where I came from. As Issei was explaining his reasoning on why he was in the Soul King's chambers in the first place, he was at least trying to examine Issei. He could that the boy was telling the truth, but the fact that he couldn't see the name of his Zanpakuto still bothered him to a great extent since he knows every name in the universe. But he could still sense Issei's spiritual pressure, in which he was inwardly amazed, as well as the other members of the Royal Guard who were watching and listening to the interaction between Issei and Ichin. But they could also sense a dark energy inside of Issei, which was similar to that of a hollow, though there was one member who looked at Issei extremely close, or more precisely his sword. The person was a dark-skinned man with thick black hair that is shaven and dyed green on the sides of his head. He wears a variation of the Shinigami Shaikishima, featuring instead a green undergarment and a shortened hakama that exposes his lower legs. Borne over this is a white, sleeveless, buffer jacket that bears the Royal Guard emblem on its back, as well as the alternating circle and diamond pattern of a captain's haori along the bottom. His attire is completed by gold-framed sunglasses with blue lenses and a pair of green slippers that are gold-trimmed and have a shoe-like appearance. This person's eyes were essentially glued to his Cis and Pakuto since never in his life he had seen a sword not only so beautiful, but also so sharp. He honestly felt like it was sharper than even his own personal sword. He could feel the immense spiritual power radiating from the blade, and that the boy who was holding it was trying his best to suppress it so as to not alarm anyone. He wanted to take a closer look at Issei's Zanpakuto and see what it could do since he could tell from first glance that it was not a normal Zanpakuto. Mind. Serious, it's weird. That sword that he's holding is no doubt his Zanpakuto, but at the same time it isn't. It's as if both the sword and the spirit within it are a separate entity but still being bound to the boy's soul. Just who is this boy and what is going on with that sword of his? As the dark-skinned was thinking of this, another of the royal guards who was right next to him noticed how the man had his eyes glued to Issei's sword and decided to ask what was wrong. The person was a tall woman with a plump face and squinted eyes. She has long, smooth purple hair reaching her mid-back that curls up at the ends and bangs framing the sides of her face. She wears black lipstick and has red swirl-shaped markings under both her eyes. She normally has her hair done up into a bun and secured with a large silver spoon-like adornment. She also wears the standard Shinigami Shihikishim with a wide obi beneath a white long-sleeved haori decorated with the Royal Guard's emblem on the back. Whisper, curious, are you alright, Etsu-san? Etsu? Startled, shakes his head. Yeah, I'm fine, Curio. It's just the boy's Zanpakuto is not entirely his Zanpakuto, and it caught my interest, is all. Furio, whisper, serious, I see. Do you think that he is a threat? Etsu, whisper. Eyes narrowed possibly. But I'm a bit worried about what that Zanpakuto of his can really do. Issei sighs, and that's how I got here, Icheb-sama, and I'm not here for the Soul King or to cause any trouble. I just want to go home. Icheb nods with his eyes closed. I see. In that case, Sirius, I'm sorry, but we can't let you do that. Shocked what? Icheb points at you were able to enter the Soul King's palace with either our permission as well as being undetected. On top of the fact you radiate spiritual energy similar to that of a hollow, and as such you must be eliminated. BZI was now beyond shock since the leader of the Royal Guard was going to eliminate him just because he accidentally stepped into the Soul King's palace with no rhyme or reason. But at the same time, he shouldn't be surprised since from what Kasuk, Tezsai, Erichi, and Issei had told about the royal guard that they are serious and focused on their mission of protecting the Soul King and destroying any threat that could destroy the Soul King. Since Issei was able to enter the Soul King's personal chambers through unknown means, he was no exception. But that still didn't mean he liked it, since to him that was just senseless murder. But right now Issei didn't have time to think about that, since if he wanted to leave here alive, then he would need to fight in order to not only leave but also win. It was then Issei got into a battle-ready stance, but he wanted to at least try to convince Icheb to let him leave one last time. Issei. Serious, please, Icheb-sama, let me leave. I promise you that I am not a threat. I see. Serious, sorry, but you can't be allowed to live, Senrik's Denchimo. It was then out of nowhere a giant spectral hand came flying towards Issei at blinding speed. Sadly, Issei didn't have enough time to dodge it even with using Shuinpa, so decided to both of his arms in a cross-arm position and brace for the impact. Boom! Issei groans IHH. It was then Issei sent flying towards across the Soul King's domain. Thankfully, due to his training, when he saw where he was going to land, he was able to position himself quickly enough so that he could land on his feet, and with hardly any more damage. Issei looked around to see himself at the bottom of a set of stairs which led to a giant shrine. He thought about possibly making a magic circle in order to leave quickly, but before he could even think of that, boom! Issei mind, and wiped down it. At the stairs stood the entire royal guard with the chief standing in front of them. But what creeped Issei out was how Issei was essentially grinning like a man. Issei? Grinning. Oh. So you survived. Interesting indeed. I was hoping you would die from the impact, but it seems that I will have to get my hands dirty. I hope you don't disappoint me, boy. It was then Ikob summoned a large calligraphy brush, which confused Issei greatly, since how the hell was Ikob supposed to fight properly if he was just using a giant brush? Issei mind, confused a brush? How the hell is he supposed to fight with that? Yamato. Serious, do not let appearance fool your partner. Greg. Serious, Yamato is right, partner. Remember when you fought Kasuk? Issei sweat a little when he remembered when he first fought against Kasuk, in which he thought his bladed cane was just a regular sword when in reality it was his Zapakuto in disguise. It was on that day not only did Issei learn the 3 core rules when it comes to fighting an opponent, but also that he should never under his opponent. Icheb grins. Before we start, I must do something first. Issei. Confused like what? Icheb grins. I see. Mind. Sweats profusely. I don't like the sound of that, Yamato. Serious, stay calm and be ready, do that, and we might be able to get through this. Issei mind. Nods right. It was then, Icheb started to brush the air and out came black ink that stood in place, which surprised, but also amazed Issei like something that was possible. When Ichib finished writing in the air, could read that it spelled seal, which confused the boy greatly. Tilts his head in confusion. Seal. Ichib. Roars seal. As soon as Ichib roared the word that he had written, a bounded field emerged that surrounded the area that they were all standing in. Issei. Shocked and confused. What the? Icheb. Grins. I just placed a bounded field around this entire area so you cannot escape. Even though I know what I'm essentially doing is killing a child, but I do what I must in order for the mission to protect the Soul King. Gestures to the rest of the royal guards, and each of the members of the royal guard understands that purpose just as much as I do. Issei. Eyes narrowed. Then you people are quietly, literally insane. Icheb. Serious, think of us however you see fit, but we must do what we must to protect the Soul King. If only you knew how important the Soul King was to the Soul Society, then you would understand why we must do this. Bess. Serious. The duty and purpose of the Soul King is to help the flow of souls in and out of the Soul Society. Is not everyone? Shocked Issei. Serious, and without the Soul King at the center, then not only the Soul Society, but also the human world and Hueco Mundo would collapse in on each other and produce unimaginable chaos. Everyone was shocked that a little boy such as Issei could even know or comprehend how important the Soul King really was. In reality, Kasuk told him about the Soul King when learning the history and duties of being a Soul Reaper as well as the 13 Jedi. But this also made everyone in the royal guard even more suspicious of Issei since he knew the purpose of the Soul King. Ichib. Eyes narrowed. And how do you know about that? Issei. Serious, that's none of your concern. I don't really care about the Soul King or your duties. All I want is to go home and live my life in peace and quiet. Ichib. Serious, that may be the case, boy, but the simple fact is that your existence is far too dangerous and unpredictable to go around freely, and as captain of the Royal Guard, I cannot let you live in fear you might be used against us. I do hope you will forgive us in the afterlife. Issei mind? Eyes narrowed. I don't think even if I did forgive you, the guilt buried deep inside will never go away. Having enough chit-chatting, both Issei and Ichib then sped towards each other at blinding speed to the point that when their weapons would cling. They couldn't believe that Issei was able to hold his strength against Ichibai, since they thought Issei would be easily overwhelmed due to their different size. Even Ichib was awfully shocked that Issei was able to survive their initial strike. But what really startled him was the look in Issei's eyes. They were different, either human or hollow, but something more powerful and primal than anything he had seen in the last 2,000 years. Ikiabi. Shocked. What the hell are you? What Ikiabi saw was Issei's eyes become complete slits similar to that of a reptile, but from Ikiabi could sense that within those eyes held so much power that he made them want to run away. But he couldn't do that. He made an oath to protect the Soul King with every fiber of his being, even if it cost him his life, and he was not going to go back on his word in that regard. It was then Issei's spiritual pressure continued to rise and take form behind him, and what he saw as well as the rest of the royal guard shocked them to their core. Within Issei's spiritual energy was a mighty red western dragon with blood red that was staring down at Ichibai with complete bloodlust with intent to kill. Ichib. Serious while sweating like crazy. Just who? What the hell are you, Issei? Serious. When you engage in battle, there are 3 rules that you must abide by. That was then Issei backed away from Ichib and quickly dashed back towards him with blinding speed, to which Ichib was able to see and parry Issei's attack. It was then Ichib tried to do overhead, to which, using a mixture of his enhanced reflexes as well as using Shuinpa, he was able gracefully dodge and appeared on top of Ichib, which shocked both him and the rest of the royal. The fact that a boy his age was able to perform Shuinpa and with great perfection and accuracy. Issei. Serious and cold. When you're about to be attacked, you dodge. Seeing Issei about to land an attack on him, Ichib, using his superhuman strength and reflexes, was able to pull his brush in order to meet Issei's blade, which in turn caused another shock wave in the area from the force of their attacks. Those who were watching the fight were in both complete awe and amazement that a boy was surviving this long against Ichib, even though he hasn't used his full strength yet. But something also told them that Issei wasn't using his full strength as well. This made all of the members of the Royal Guard sweat a little, since the thought of a full-scale battle between those two would be like. But there was one thought that they all had on their minds. Everyone mind sweat profusely. What kind of monster is this boy? As both Issei and Ichib both struggled for dominance to see whose blade was superior, using all of his strength in his muscles, Ichib was able to push back Issei a few feet. Issei landed on his feet, though skidding a bit while using his free hand to slow him down. Seeing that Issei was not just some boy to be taken lightly, Ichib took advantage of Issei trying to recover and used Shunpa to get the jump on Issei. When he appeared right next to Issei ready to end him once and for all, he was shocked that right when his brush was about to make contact with Issei, his blade made contact with it before he could even blink. Ichib. Shocked. What the? Issei. Serious. When you block an attack, you block it. It was then Issei, not wanting to drag this battle any longer since he wanted to go home already, as well as the fact that everyone back home must be worried about him. The last thing he ever wanted to do was to make Ichigo, Yuzu, and Karen worry about where he was again, as well as getting another scolding from Yoriuchi. Issei then started to get up from the ground while still holding Yamato with one hand. Everyone had their eyes widened in shock at the fact that this young boy was being able to push back Ichibai with just one hand. Ichibi was honestly trying to push down Issei with all of his might, but the boy he was fighting would not budge, which made him truly think that he was no doubt a monster. Once Issei, standing on his own feet using his own monster strength, pushed upward, making Ichibai slightly fumble backwards while still holding his brush in the air. Once Ichibai was temporarily off balance, Issei quickly jumped into the air meeting Ichibai at eye level, and then quickly twisting his body around, performed a powerful spin kick on Ichibai's face, which caused him to skid back towards the rest of the Royal Guard members. Thankfully, Ika, being the skilled warrior that he was able to react quickly enough to use the other end of his brush to help not only regain his balance, but also to slow down his speed. When he finally stopped, he checked the area where Issei kicked him to see if there anything broken, to which thankfully for him there wasn't. But that still didn't change the fact that this boy he was fighting was definitely something else, nevertheless, a monster in his own right. He thought to himself that he no doubt had his work cut out for himself, since he didn't think bringing down a boy like Issei would be so much trouble. Ichib then noticed how the rest of the Royal Guard were about ready to jump in, and aid him only for him to put his hand out, stopping them in their tracks. Ichib, serious, do not interfere. The Royal Guards. Surprised, Issei raises an eyebrow in confusion. Him. Issei, mind? Confused, why is he telling them to join him? He would stand a better chance if you let them join him. Yamato. Serious, I believe it is because of their duty. Issei, mind? Curious, what do you mean, Yamato? Yamato. Serious, isn't it an obvious partner? He literally told you before you started battling. To them, protecting the Soul King is top priority, and as such, he must be willing to give up his own life in order to do so. Albion. Serious. It is possible that even Ichib knows that he might die trying to fight you, and as such, he wants to make sure that the other members of the Royal Guard are at least still alive to take his place in order to not only to preserve their duty in protecting the Soul King, but also currently taking you down. It was then Issei understood what both Yamato and Albion were telling him, and to be honest, Issei fucking hated it. For some reason, a part of him hated the fact that people were willing to sacrifice their own comrades when they could have easily helped them so they could survive together. But at the same time, Issei understood why they needed to do this, since without anyone protecting the Soul King, then this whole universe would fall under complete and utter chaos. In reality, he didn't want to kill Ichib or any of the Royal Guard members, since all wanted was just go back home. But both Irichi and Kasuke, as well as Yamato, Ddraig and Albion, that there will be times where he might be forced to take someone's life in order to survive. That was the cold and harsh truth of the world, whether he liked it or not. You must fight in order to survive, the weak die and the strong survive, and it has been that way since the beginning of time. As such, a person must be willing to get stronger and gain more power in order to survive in the world. Issei understood that he needed to get stronger in order to handle the power he had sealed away inside of him, but at the same time, he was afraid, since Ddraig had told him during his training in the time-altering dimension that a good majority of his previous hosts have gone mad with power and caused unknown destruction. A part of him was afraid if he was unknowingly going down that route. It also made him wonder a bit of what was he like before losing memories. Issei became deeply afraid of before losing his memories that he was completely power-hungry person, just like the previous Red Dragon Emperors. He honestly dreaded the day when his memories would return, since would he still be the same Issei or Issei that he was before? The thought sometimes would keep him up at night. But he didn't have time to think about all that, since right now he was in the middle of a battle in order to live, and it was a battle he was going to win if he ever wanted to go back home. Wanting to end this battle once and for all, he got into a Iyajutsu-style stance and started to breathe in and out deeply, which got the rest of the Royal Guard out of their stupor, and for Ika to be ready for what Issei was about to next. But at the same time, they were confused about what Ichib could do when he was at the other side of the area. Ichib, mind, eyes narrowed. What is he up to? Ichib. Serious, and when you attack, you kill. It was then faster than anyone in the Royal Guard could comprehend. Issei put Yamato into its scabbard, and then faster than the speed of light quickly unsheathed and resheathed Yamato. This confused everyone in the Royal Guard immensely, since to them Issei just casually sheathed his sword. At least that was until Ddraig. Out of nowhere, Ichib's chest was cut to millions of slices, to the point it looked like his body exploded from the inside. All that was left was his head, arms, and lower body hanging in the air. Everyone in the Royal Guard was beyond shocked and confused at the fact that Issei was somehow able to kill Ichib from that distance. The one who mostly confused was Atsu, since he was paying extra attention to Issei's movements with his blade, and not even he could keep how fast he was going with his sword. But the part that was puzzling him was how Issei managed to cut down Aika from that distance, since in no way, shape, or form something should be possible. Unless that was one of his Zanpakuto abilities. Issei breathed a sigh of relief since hopefully it was over, and since he killed Aika, the seal around the area was disabled and he could possibly just outrun the rest of the members of the Royal Guard in order to hopefully have enough time to open a portal or Dragon Gate back home. Issei sighs finally. It's over. Yamato. Eyes narrowed. It's not over, Issei shocked and confused. What do you mean? Greg. Serious look around you, partner. It was then Issei checking his surroundings only to be shocked that the barrier surrounding the area was still up. Issei shocked and confused. What the hell, how is this possible? Once Icab was killed, the barrier surrounding this place should have gone down, right? Yamato, eyes narrowed. Maybe perhaps he's not entirely dead yet. Issei confused. That's impossible. He's completely dismembered. There's no way that he's alive. As Issei discussed what was going on with their current predicament as Ichiban's head was falling to the ground with his last bit of strength and spiritual energy, he made mental contact with one of the members of the Royal Guard. Ichiban Serious Kiryu. Kiryu Serious yes, Ichibai-sama. Ichiban Serious, quickly say my name. Kiryu nods high. Kiryu? Serious Ichib. Issei and his partners. Startled as soon as Kiryu said Ichiban's name, what happened shocked both Issei and his partners to their core, since something like this should not be possible. Even Ddraig mentally thought that not even the members of the House of Phoenix were able to achieve something like this. What they saw was Ichiban was being essentially put back together like a broken toy being fixed, but at molecular level essentially. When it was done, Ichiban stretched his limbs and cracked his neck. He then looked at the shocked Ichiban with a savage grin on his face. Ichiban grins. You didn't really think it would be that easy to take me out, did you? Issei shocked and confused how the hell that should be impossible. His head was completely disconnected from his body. There should be no reasonable explanation that he should regenerate himself like that. It's not like he's some kind of immortal like a phoenix or something. It was then Issei for some reason had a random flash of fighting a blonde-haired man with fiery wings. Issei shakes his head in confusion. What the hell was that? Riser. Anakin, Drake decided to chime before could think too deeply on the image that he just saw. Greg. Serious partner, snap out of it. Startled, shakes his head right. Eyes narrowed. I can't lose focus. Yamato. Serious, be on guard, partner. There obviously must be some trick or technique in order for him to be able to regenerate like that. Nods. You're right. Albion. Serious, get ready since I think Ichiban here is done playing around. As soon as Albion told Issei, he got into a battle-ready stance and saw Ichiban still having his savage grin on his face, twirling his brush around as if he was getting ready to do something dangerous. Ichiban grins. I must admit, boy, that you surprised me. I didn't think that you, a child, was willing to push me this far. I say serious. Well, it's not like I wanted to push this far in the first place. Ichiban laughs, I suppose, but that doesn't mean I won't stop trying to kill you since you are still considered a possible threat. I say, sweat drops. You considered an 11-year-old a threat? For fuck's sake, that is retarded beyond belief. Ichiban grins. Be that as it may, I think it's about time we end this once and for all. I see. Sweat drops. Why do I feel like he just casually ignored what I just told him? Ichiban grins. Blacken. I say? Confused once Ichiban roared that out, his brush began to transform similar to that of a shuriken release, in which it turned into a somewhat short lathe with the top portion taking the form of a short single-edged blade reminiscent of a tip of a shotgun attached to the long brush handle. Additionally, a large halo of black ink appears in the air behind Ichi. Eyes narrowed. That must be his shuriken. Yamato, eyes narrowed. I agree. Be wary of what its abilities are since it could be dangerous for us to handle, especially if we were to push him to use Bankai. Issei mind? Nods right. Issei grins well, are you ready to meet your end, boy? Issei. Eyes narrowed no, since unlike you I have people waiting for me back home. Issei grins well I hope they can grieve in peace then. It was then Ish slashed his glaive sideways, summoning black ink speeding towards Issei. Not wanting to know what the ink would do to him, he quickly jumped out of the way to get away from him. But just when he thought he was out of the way, Issei appeared right next to him making Issei grimace that he isn't fast enough to escape again. Issei grins take this. Issei. Frustrated damn it, splat. It was then Issei's entire body was covered in black ink which confused him greatly since he didn't feel that nothing happened to him. It didn't melt his skin off nor affected him in any shape or form. He then sniffed the ink to see if there was anything off about the ink only to find nothing wrong or suspicious about the ink, which further confused Issei greatly as to why simply Ika essentially sprayed him with this ink instead of just simply trying to cut him down with his blade. It was then he looked over to Issei again, only to see him still having a savage grin on his face, which made Issei wonder what the hell was he planning. Issei mind? Eyes narrowed. What is he planning? Amongst the members of the Royal Guard, members who were watching had a bored expression on their faces since the battle was essentially over now that Ikiab released his shuriken. Bored? Well, this battle is essentially over. Jirio. Nod. Sadly, I will have to agree with Yashiduru-san, though a part of me feels horrible that the boy must be killed. It is inevitable that it needs to be done for the sake of protecting the Soul King. Plus I have to agree since once Ichib-sama unleashes the power of his brush, there is literally almost nothing in this universe that can stop him. The person that Kirio was talking to was a slender and very youthful woman with fair skin and long, black hair that is adorned at the back by a large golden ornament in the shape of a crescent moon with numerous small lines radiating outwards. She wore the standard Shinigami shihikishin beneath a white long-sleeved haori, over which she dons a further white robe fastened at the front near the center of her chest. Her height makes her the shortest among other members of Zero Division, but she wears a pair of extremely thick-soled akobo. She has 6 long, golden skeletal artificial arms attached to her back that she uses in place of her physical hands. But before they could essentially give Ikab the victory, another one of the Royal Guard members spoke up. Serious, I wouldn't call this battle over just yet, Kirio Shatera. Kirio Shatera. Confused, the person that spoke was a lean-built and very tall man with black hair arranged into an outlandishly large pompadour or regent hairstyle with tapered sideburns. He frequently chews on a small stick. Instead of the standard Shinigami shihikishin, he wears a waist-length white jacket that leaves most of his chest exposed, but still bears the Royal Guard emblem on its back, as well as the alternating circle and diamond pattern of the captain's haori along the bottom. His attire is completed by a black hakama, a large yellow sash around his waist, and a pair of sandals. Shatura. Curious with an eyebrow raised, what makes you say the Tenjiro-san? Tenjiro. Serious sits the look in those kids' eyes. Shatura. Raises an eyebrow his eyes. Injiro. Syria. His eyes. That kid has a lot of power hiding deep within those eyes, and I pretty know it to be true. Especially when released his spiritual energy, and what that energy took the form of, but I think he's trying to not release too much of it out. Whether it's so that doesn't expose himself all at once, or he's too scared to release it is up for debate. But I will tell you one things, and that is that the kid has no doubt a lot more tricks up his sleeve. Even though Ichib definitely has more experience than him, the kid makes it up with his instincts and sharp reflexes. Looks over to Etsu. Even Etsu here can see it, as you probably haven't noticed that he hasn't said anything ridiculous since this fight started. At that statement, both women were both shocked and surprised that one of the most vocal and non-professional members of the Royal Guard didn't make wise cracks or say anything ridiculous since the fight started between Issei and Ijip. This only meant one thing, and that he was extremely invested into the fight, and was extremely interested in the sword that Issei was wielding and what it can do. Upon seeing how even Etsu was taking this battle seriously, the sole female members of the Royal Guard decided to turn their attention back towards the fight, but with more interest than before, since if what Tenjiro said is true, then this battle had only just begun. All while back with Issei, he was currently grinning since now that his ink had landed on Issei, this fight was as good as over since with him being covered in ink, he could instantly drain his power and add to his own. Issei mind, grins now then. Issei grins now then. I see, this battle is over. I see. Eyes narrowed him. Issei grins blacken. Everyone. I see, confused while checking himself, was something supposed to happen or something? Issei shocked. What the? How? Everyone gasped. Issei was completely shocked since not only should Issei be drained of all of his energy and be added to himself, but none of that happened. Issei didn't feel any surge of power going into him, nor did Issei look like he was exhausted whatsoever. This of course shocked everyone in the Royal Guard since they knew that everything that Ikimanji's ink covers became under Issei's control. But despite being covered in the ink, Issei was essentially immune to the effects of what the ink was supposed to do. It was then Ichibe's eyes narrowed at Issei, since there was possibly only one explanation as to why Ikimanji's ink did not affect him. Ichibe mind? Eyes narrowed. Is it because I can't see his or his Zanpakuto's name? While this was going, Issei was confused on why they were all so surprised and shocked that nothing happened to him. Issei mind? Confused, why are they surprised that nothing happened to me? Hamato, thinking I would guess that the ink that you covered was supposed to do something to you, that you would itch up his victory. But it seems that whatever was supposed to happen didn't affect you for some reason. Issei mind? Curious, was it because I'm a dragon and not technically a spirit? Albion, thinking it's possible since we dragons do have a pretty strong resistance to most attacks, whether physical or magical, and Kito is no exception to that. Eyes narrowed, but something tells me that this ink was supposed to do something more than damage you. Issei mind? Sighs in annoyance. Well, in that case, I'd better get this gunk off of me before whatever effect is supposed to have kicks in. But that said, Issei erased his free hand, which got both Issei and the rest of the Royal Guard's members get their eyes narrowed since they felt that Issei was about to perform a Kito spell of some sort, only to be shocked that what came out of Issei's palm was a magic circle with intro design that none of them recognized or comprehend. But what came out of the circle was a large ball of water, which surprised and confused everyone since they didn't know how Issei could manifest a large pool of water out of nowhere. But in reality it was just a simple spell that learned during his 7 months of training in the alternate dimension to help him with his survival skills. Though he was not adept at using these spells, then he is with Kito without promoting himself to bishop, he could at least use basic spells to help survive in the wilderness. He usually used this spell to either help bathe or cook his meals from the wildlife he was under. It was then Issei dropped the large pool of water on himself in order to wash away the ink that Icab got on him. Once Issei saw that all of the ink was off of him, he then raised his body temperature in order to instantly dry himself off. It was then Issei pulled his hair back while giving Ichib and the rest of the Royal Guard members a fierce glare that sent them a shiver down their spines. Issei glares at them now. I don't know what the hell that ink was supposed to do to me, but I'm done fucking around. All I want is to go home and live my life in peace and quiet. If you assholes are gonna keep me from having that raises his spiritual energy, then I will cut you all down until I'm allowed to go home. Everyone was now a bit terrified from the tone that's spoken, and added on the fact of him fiercely releasing his spiritual energy added on to the fear. Everyone was sweating in absolute fear of the boy in front of them. Even Ddraig, Albion, and Yamato were a bit fearful at the tone and the amount of energy and bloodlust that Issei was emitting. Though Ddraig was more worried than fearful since he was afraid that this fight might push him too hard and affect the seal he placed on his memories. It was then he looked to Yamato and Albion with a serious expression. Greg, serious, I need you two to keep an eye on him, and tried to keep him level-headed. Albion, curious, where are you going? Greg, serious, I'm concerned that if this battle continues, then the seals on his memories will begin to break to the point the curse of the Juggernaut will start to seep into his mind. So I have to make sure the seal still holds until the time is right. While I'm doing that, I just need you to keep his mind busy from anything that could remind him about his old life. I also need to check the seals on his powers. Yamato, serious. And if he were to ask where you are during the fight? Greg, serious. Tell him that I was concerned about the seals I placed on his powers, since no doubt that this fight will no doubt push his base limits to the max, and will no doubt break more of the seals on his powers. So you won't be technically lying but not telling the whole truth. Yamato. Nods. Very well, do what you must. Albion. Nods. Will keep him busy while you do what must. Greg. Nods. Good. Meanwhile, back in the underground training area. Visuk had just entered the underground training area only to see Irichi and Tessai discussing something which caught his curiosity. Visuk. Curious, what are you two chatting about? Shouldn't one of you two be training? Si. Confused. That's the thing. He's missing. Visuk. Confused. What do you mean? Si. Serious. Well, the thing was that I came down here about 3 hours ago to meet him for his keto training, only for him to not be here. Irichi. Slightly annoyed, and I just got here to start on his Shuinpa and martial arts training, only to find Tessai sitting here like an idiot. Hisuk grins mischievously. My, aren't you acting like a concerned wife, worried about her husband being missing? Are you worried that he might be cheating on you with another woman? At that comment, Yurichi's face became redder than Issei's hair, but she was also annoyed by it, since ever since Issei returned from training session, both Kisa Condition would constantly tease the both of them on how they would make a cute couple and how Yurichi need to hurry up and claim Issei before it was too late, since no doubt once he was all grown up, that woman will be lining up to be with him. Even Tessa would occasionally tease them, which both embarrassed and irked them the most, since he wouldn't be the type of person to tease someone like that. But in a way, everyone's personality has changed a bit ever since ASE came into their lives. Eriki, completely red while having a tick mark. Will you shut up about that, for God's sake? Kisuk, he's only 11 years old. Grins happily. That may be so, but he is growing up so fast. Before you know it, he will be a handsome young man that any woman would want to be with. Irachi growls in annoyance. Why you, Pisuk? Serious, but I do agree that it isn't like I say to miss his training sessions though. Serious. So what should we do? Pisuk, thanking him. Smiles goofy like, then I guess we'll wait for him to come back then. Irachi. Serious, are you sure, Kisuk? What if something happened to him, Pisuk? Smirks, why are you really worried for your future husband? Irichi? I twitching with a tick mark, Kisuk. Disuk? Smiles while waving it off. Don't worry, he's probably just lost or something is all. If you want, then you can scold him all you want before he gets the chance to explain himself. Irachi. I twitching with a tick. Marco, trust me. Clenching her fists, that Brad is gonna get the scolding of a lifetime when he comes back. Kisuk smiles happily. Great. Now how about we all relax and just wait until Luckey comes back, and I'm sure when he does he'll explain everything. I'll give Issei a call about what happened and go from there. Si nods. Very well then. Yorichi sighs in annoyance. Fine. As Kisuk and Tessai begin to walk back upstairs towards the store to relax, Yorichi couldn't help but stare at the exact same spot where Issei emerged from the Dragon Gate after he came back from his 7-month training trip. Erichi then grew a slight look of concern because of the possible trouble he might have got himself into, and hoped he would return soon. Erichi. Concerned, please hurry up and come back to us. Issei. Meanwhile, back with Issei. Clang, clang. Boom. That was all that was heard during the fight between Issei and ICAB. The area where they first started their battle was practically destroyed to the point that the rest of the Royal Guard members had to move up higher up the staircase to avoid being caught in the crossfire. Issei was done screwing around to the point he allowed himself to promote it tonight in order to increase speed to the point as if he was essentially blurred to everyone's eyes. Though Icheb was still able to block and parry Issei's attacks, it was only by the skin of his teeth. Issei had been able to essentially kill ICAB about 5 times now, and each time he has done so, he was somehow able to regenerate himself, which annoyed Issei to no end. Everyone that was watching this fight unfold were both shocked and petrified at the amount of power this boy was releasing. The thought that he will no doubt get stronger as he gets older just filled them with dread. Issei, mind, annoyed Dan. Every time I cut him down he keeps on regenerating himself. Yamato. Serious, be calm, partner. There must be a trick and a limit to his regeneration. We just need to try to keep a close eye when we cut him down next time. Issei mind? Nods right. All the while with Aika, he was on edge since no doubt he greatly underestimated this boy, since he was no doubt pushing him to his absolute limit. He thought of using Futenta Satsurum, but after seeing that the ink didn't affect, he believed it would be a waste of spiritual energy, though he believed that he might need to use Ikimoji's second form in order to defeat Issei once and for all. But before he could do that, Issei was able to pull off that mysterious attack once again and dismembered him. Icheb mind? Serious Curio. Furio, shouts Icheb-sama. Just like before, Icheb was able to regenerate his entire body back as if it was nothing, but Yamato noticed something this time when Icheb regenerated and decided to relay his thoughts to both Albion and Issei. Yamato. Serious partner, I just noticed something about Ichib's regeneration. Issei mind? Curious, what is it? Yamato. Serious, have you noticed that every time he regenerates that the same woman who is watching us says his name? Albion. Curious, now that you mention it, I did find it weird that she would always call out his name as if it was by command. It was then Issei looked over to where the other Royal Guard members were watching and saw that one of them looked completely different from before, which made Issei's eyes widen in shock that the tall plump that he saw became a slender and endowed woman. Albion. Shocked, what the hell happened to her? Issei mind? Eyes narrowed. I see. Now I'm starting to get it now. Albion. Curious, what do you mean? Issei mind? Serious. That plump form that she had was essentially the manifestation of her excess spiritual energy. Yamato. Syria. So that would mean Issei mind? Nods yes. That is what she actually looks like, and given that she returned to form, means that she must have used a good chunk of her overall spiritual energy. Eyes narrowed, but the question is, how is she losing all that spiritual energy when she's not even fighting anyone? As Issei was continuously fighting and blocking Ichib's attacks, he started to remember how Ichib told him that anyone who says his name without his permission is cursed to lose their voice forever. It was then it got Issei thinking about the people who do have his permission, as well as why that woman would call his name whenever he killed him. After a few moments of thinking it over as well as connecting the dots, Issei's eyes widen in realization as to why Ikup is able to regenerate himself. I see. Eyes widen in realization. I got it. It was then Icheb charged forward at Issei with his glaive at a stalemate with his sword. Icheb grins. Oh, and what did you find out? I see. Serious. I found out the secret to your regeneration. I see. Raises an eyebrow. I see. Serious, it's your name. It's not only a curse, but it's also your crutch. I see. Eyes narrowed. I see. Serious, at first I thought you had some Godspeed regeneration ability, but no doubt had a limit to it. But then I saw one of your members keep on calling your name whenever I cut you down. You instantly start to regenerate, which got me thinking about how you told me that your name carries a curse that without your permission you lose your voice. But then I thought about the people who have your permission. Would they get certain benefits? It turns out that you only get the benefits in which once they say your name, you take away a portion of their spirit energy in order to heal yourself. And I would guess the more someone calls your name, the more spirit energy you get in order to heal yourself faster. Upon hearing Issei's claim, everyone was shocked that he had figured out Ikup's technique in order to regenerate himself from even near death. It was then Ikup decided that he needed to end Issei quickly since he now knows how his regeneration works. It was then Icheb started to rapidly his glaive at Issei while was able to counter his strike thanks to his enhanced speed and reflexes from the night piece. Issei smirks. It seems someone's on edge since I found out about your little trick. Icap grunts. Issei smirks. In that case, I wonder what would happen to you if you didn't have your little extra supply of spirit energy. But that said, Issei quickly backed away from Icab a few feet away, and using a mixture of both his leg strength as well as Shempo, he reached high up into the air. While in the air, he mentally confirmed his plan to Yamato. Issei mind? Serious, you ready, Yamato? Yamato nods while smirking. Yes, this should be fun. Issei smirks. Key. Promotion to Rook. But that confirmation tossed Yamato up slightly into the air, and once the handle was just below him, Issei performed a spin kick at the handle, and with blindly speed, Yamato headed towards the remaining members of the Royal Guard. This shocked the members of the Royal Guard as to why Issei thoughtlessly tossed away his weapon. But just as Yamato was about to land on them, the sword began to glow, which Yamato manifested in his spirit form, shocking everyone besides Issei. When Yamato landed in front of the rest of the members of the Royal Guard, they were off guard when they looked into Yamato's eyes, which greatly resembled that of the Hollow. Yamato. Serious, you fools should have let my partner leave when you had the chance. Etsu. Serious. Before we start, I need to know something. Yamato. Raises an eyebrow. Etsu. Curious, just what are you? Yamato. Serious. I am my partner's Zanpakuto, but at the same time I feel I am something more. This confused Etsu greatly, since what did the sword mean that he was something more than just his Zanpakuto, but decided to ignore it, and summoned a large jelly-like liquid tank which held an interesting blade that piqued Yamato's interest greatly. Once Setsu pulled the blade out from the tank, Yamato could tell from looking at it that both the texture and quality of the blade is almost on par with his Etsu. Smirks, this is my Zanpakuto. It's called Sifushi, and due to me not being able to draw for such a long time, its forte is a bit unstable. To be honest, I consider this sword a failure. Yamato. Eyes narrowed, and why is that? Etsu? Serious, because this sword is too sharp and its edge is too smooth. It never chips or scratches from being used, and whenever blood stains this blade it just slides off. As such, no sheath can hold this blade, and thus it fails the basic definition of a sword. At that statement, Yamato mentally sighed in annoyance at the sheer stupidity of this man, as he doesn't realize why his sword is the way it is right now. Deep down he felt bad for his fellow Zanpakuto, as his owner doesn't realize why it is so powerful in the first place, and doesn't want to confront the truth in front of him. Yamato sighs. Very well then, gets into a battle-ready stance. Let's see if that blade is as sharp as you say. Etsu? Smirks. Points Seifushi at Yamato. Well then, don't blame me if you end up getting cut into pieces. Yamato smirks. Well, in that case let's have some fun. But that the rest of the royal guards got into a battle-ready stance, since they could tell that this Zanpakuto was no doubt just as dangerous and fearsome as its wielder. All the while, Aika looked at his fellow royal guard members with great concern, since not only could see the name of that Zanpakuto, but also the fact he could sense a deep and dangerous power, just like he did with Issei. But before he could try to warn them about it, Issei appeared in front of him with a smirk on his face as well as his fist cocked back. Ichib. Shocked. What the? Issei. Smirks. You shouldn't be so worried about them when you still have to deal with me. Sadly, Ichib was far too slow to react to Issei's attack and was sent flying across the other side of the area away from the rest of the Royal Guard members. Ichib quickly got back up while trying to check himself for any major injuries, to which thankfully for him there weren't any. But when looked up he saw Issei standing in front of him with a smirk on his face while cracking his knuckles. Issei smirks. Well then, let's how long you last now without your little lifeline. It should. Serious, don't get cocky boy, since now that you don't have your sword you can't use that strange technique anymore. Issei smirks. Maybe so, but I don't need my Zanpakuto to kick your ass since I still haven't used my full strength against you. At that, Aikup's eyes widened in both shock and horror at the fact that this boy that he's been fighting hasn't even used full strength, and just from one look from his eyes, told him that he was not lying and that he still had a lot more power left in him. Never in his life has Ikebudafo as fearsome and terrifying as Issei, and as he glanced over to see how the rest of his royal guard members were doing, he could see that Issei's Zanpakuto was holding them all off with great precision and strength. Even with Etsu releasing his Zanpakuto, Yamato was able to hold on equal grounds with him. But Aikop once again couldn't allow himself to give in to defeat, since he along with the rest of the royal guards swore an oath to protect the Soul King by any means necessary. It was then he readied his glaive and pointed it right, Issei ready to give his life for the mission he was given by the Soul King. Aikop grins. Well then, Issei, I hope you are ready, since if this is going to be my last day, then I'm making sure that I'm taking you to hell with me. Issei smirks. Well, in that case, show me your motivation. Meanwhile, deep inside Issei's soul, Greg was currently trying to keep the seals on both Issei's memories as well as the abundance of spiritual energy that Issei still stored up inside of him that he was not ready for. Issei that it was taking a lot of drag would be an understatement, since despite not having a body, the seals that he placed on his hosts were being very stubborn at the current moment of being undone, and it was definitely taking a lot of his energy to keep it from being undone. But sadly, the fight that his host was currently in was not making it easy for him, since the more he fought with them, the more that seals were fighting back. Greg grunts in annoyance. Damn, these past hosts of mine are as stubborn as Issei. If he keeps on fighting like this, then I don't know how long I can keep the seals from breaking. Albion smirks. In that case, you need a hand? Greg, surprised Albion. It was then Greg turned to see the soul fragment of rival Albion with a smirk on his face. Greg, serious. What are you doing here, Albion? I thought I told you and Yamato to keep an eye on Issei. Albion, serious. Yamato is currently fighting off against the rest of the members of the Royal Guard in order to prevent Icheb from regenerating himself. Issei is solely focusing everything on his fight with Icheb, so I hardly doubt he will need any advice, so I decided to help you out with the seals. Ray couldn't help sigh in annoyance at the risky actions that both his host as well as his rival were taking in order to end this fight quickly. Even though deep down he was grateful that he was here to help him with the seals, but his pride as a dragon would not allow him to admit it. Greg, serious. I don't need your help, Albion. Just go back and keep an eye on his Albion, of course. I'd at this, since he knew that Ddraig was struggling with keeping the seals in check, but his dragon pride wouldn't allow it. Even though he wasn't the original Albion, he still had all of his original self's memories as well as his personality, and he knew better than anyone how stubborn and prideful both of them could be. Hence part of the reason why they were sealed away in sacred gears in the first place. Even though he understands what Ddraig was trying to tell him, but he wouldn't listen since he was thinking about Issei's well-being, and if the seals on his memories were to break during this fight, then not only would end up destroying both the Soul King's palace and Siriti, but also himself. Ever since he had awakened inside of Issei and learning what happened to him, he began to care for him just as his original self cared for Vala. And as such, he will do anything to make sure that Issei was not only the strongest being he could be, but also he can enjoy the peace and quiet that he deserved. As such, he got behind the seal that was containing Issei's memories while shoving Ddraig to the side where the rest of Issei's Soul Reaper powers resided, which annoyed Ddraig greatly. Greg, annoyed. Hey, what are you? Albion, annoyed. Well, you just shut up and focus on taking care of that seal. Why do I take care of this one? Greg, annoyed, I said. Albion, annoyed. Listen, goddammit. Greg, gasped. Albion, serious. Look, even though I may not be the original Albion, I still have all his memories as well as his personality, and trust me, this hurts my pride more than you know. Greg, shocked. Albion, serious, but there is one thing that we both share, and that is for Issei's well-being, and just like you, I want him to be able to grow up and be happy with his life. You can't do this alone, Ddraig. Even as we speak, Yamato is out there giving it his all to end this battle as quickly as possible so that Issei can go home and live the rest of his life in this world in peace. Ddraig was honestly shocked by the fragment his rival was telling him, and he honestly couldn't deny the logic since he was honestly nearing his limit, trying to contain both seals at the same time. It was then Ddraig put on a cocky smirk and decided to ask Albion on how he was going to help stop Issei from going berserk. Greg smirks. Then enlighten me on how you are going to help me. Albion smirks. Have you already forgotten why I was considered your equal, Greg? It was then Albion began to a bright azure color, and as Albion placed his claws on a seal, he roared out his signature ability. Albion roared divide. As soon as Albion said that, the leak on Issei's memories as well as the negative emotions of the past wielders began to reduce at alarming rate to the point that Albion was able to fix the seals properly without any backlash. Even though Ddraig wouldn't admit, he was thankful that not only did help him with the seals, but he was also thankful to his host for absorbing Albion's jewel, since without it, and its abilities, he wouldn't know what he would do right now. Now that the seals on Issei's memories were secured for the time being, he could focus on maintaining and repairing the seal that contained the rest of Issei's spiritual energy. Meanwhile, back with Issei. Issei and Ichib were fighting fiercely while Yamato was taking care of the rest of the Royal Guard members. Even though Issei had admitted that even with the properties of a rook, Issei was still able to do quite a bit of damage to him. Issei had tried to use a few Keto spells in order to help either damage or slow him, but he was able to counter them perfectly, which didn't really surprise Issei since he guessed that Ichib had a few centuries to master Keto, while he had only started training in Keto for only a year or so. Both of them were across from each other panting with their clothes ripped and teared. Both of them were covered in cuts and bruises, and both of them were nearly out of spirit energy. Ichib grins while panting. I must admit, boy. I didn't you would be able to push me this far. Issei grins while panting. Same to you as well, Ichib-san. But then again, I expect nothing less from the captain of the Royal Guards. Ichib grins while panting. But you were still able to push this far and you are only a child. Laughs wholeheartedly. I can only imagine the type of monster you will be in the future. But before Issei could say anything else, both combatants heard something similar to that of glass breaking. Issei Ichib. Surprised when they both looked at the source of the sound, what they saw amazed and shocked them. Both Kiryu and Senjimaro were on the floor unconscious and badly injured. Tenjiro was panting and was also heavily injured but was still standing. But what shocked all of them was what happened to Etsu's sword. It had completely broken in half. Both Aika and Tenjiro were completely shocked by what they just witnessed, but the one who was the most was Etsu since, even though he deemed Seifushi a failure, he never thought in all his years that there would be a blade that existed that would surpass his own. Issei, on the other hand, was amazed by Yamato's ability to handle the other members of the Royal Guard, and he honestly couldn't wait to be an amazing swordsman like him in the future. Once Setsu picked up the other half of his blade, he looked up to Yamato with an expression of both shock and horror. Etsu? Shocked how? Just how were we able to cut down Seifushi? Yamato? Sighs and annoyance, eyes narrowed. If I truly need to explain to you how you lost, then you truly have not learned anything. Etsu? Shocked Yamato? Smirks Humph. But you truly want to know the gist of why your blade lost to me? It's simple, really. You simply lack motivation. With that said, Yamato performed a roundhouse kick to Etsu's face, sending him crashing to the stairs, rendering him unconscious. Etsu? Losing consciousness. Tenjiro Ikiabi, roars Etsu-san. It was then Tenjiro, using his own Zapukuto that took the form of a small blade with a curved tip attached to a long wooden pole, began to try to clash with Yamato with great strength, to which Yamato blocked effortlessly. Injiro. Angry, you bastard, you damn monster, you'll pay for this. Yamato. Eyes narrowed. Really now, I'm the monster. You and the rest of the so-called royal guards were willing to kill my partner who is only a child with no real cause, and we're the monster. If anyone is to blame for what happened to your comrades, it is yourselves. Injiro. Eyes narrowed. Why you? Yamato. Eyes narrowed. My partner has tried telling and warning you all numerous times that he didn't want any of this to happen and just wanted to go home.